There is a moment, perhaps you felt it when the ground beneath you dissolves. Not the earth itself, but the invisible scaffolding of meaning that once held your life together. The career that once defined you feels hollow. The relationships that anchored you now seem like fragile illusions. Even the spiritual practices that once brought solace now whisper in a language you no longer understand. This is the threshold. This is where the dark night of the soul begins. But what if everything you've been told about this descent is wrong? What if it isn't a trial to endure, a test of faith, or even a spiritual crisis in the way we've been taught? What if instead it is something far older, far more deliberate, an ancient initiation disguised as suffering? Carl Jung, the explorer of the unconscious, once wrote that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And yet, we have been conditioned to flee from the dark, to medicate it, to bypass it with affirmations and forced positivity. We treat the dark night as an error in the system, a glitch in our awakening, rather than its very engine. But what if the darkness is not the absence of light, but the womb of it? Modern spirituality often frames transformation as a hero's ascent climbing toward higher vibrations, transcending the ego, escaping the shadows. But the oldest myths tell a different story. Inanna, the Sumerian goddess, does not ascend to heaven without first descending into the underworld, stripped of her jewels, her crown, her very identity. Odin does not gain the wisdom of the runes without hanging himself from the world tree for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear. The alchemists did not seek gold without first dissolving their base matter in nigredo, the blackening. And yet, we resist. We call it depression, burnout, a low vibrational state, as if the universe itself has made a mistake. But what if the universe is perfectly exact in its cruelty? What if this dissolution is not punishment, but precision? Long before Jung, before Christianity, before even the written word, the shamans and seers of old knew something we have forgotten. The soul must be unmade before it can be remade. The dark night is not a passive suffering. It is an active unraveling. It is the ego's funeral pyre, the place where the false self is burned away, not by some external force, but by its own refusal to face what it truly is. This is why so many spiritual seekers stall in their awakening. They mistake the dark night for a storm to wait out, when in truth, it is the storm that clears the way. They seek answers in the light, when the real revelation is buried in the dark. Here lies the great paradox. The very thing we fear, the loss of control, the death of who we thought we were, is the only thing that can free us. The dark night is not the absence of God, as St. John of the Cross once lamented, but God's most intimate act of communion. It is the universe peeling away everything that is not you, even if it feels like you are being skinned alive. And so, we arrive at the ancient warning, whispered through the ages, but drowned out by the noise of quick fixes and spiritual bypassing. You cannot skip the descent. The darkness is not your enemy. It is your most faithful teacher. Hey, if you're new here, welcome to Darker Wisdom Channel. This is where we pull back the veil on the hidden truths of spirituality, psychology, and the mysteries they don't teach you in the light. We dive deep into the shadows. Carl Jung, ancient wisdom, the dark night of the soul, and the raw, unfiltered side of awakening. If you've ever felt like there's more to reality than what we've been told, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit subscribe button, because we're just getting started. And if you've got questions or thoughts, drop them in the comments. We read every single one. Thank you for being here, for your support, and for daring to explore the depths with us. Let's begin. If the dark night of the soul were merely suffering, it would be no different from ordinary pain. But it is not ordinary. It is sacred in its devastation. It does not tear you down randomly. It dismantles you with precision, like a surgeon removing a tumor from the tissue of your being. To understand this process, to truly grasp why it must be endured rather than escaped, we must examine its core themes, the hidden architecture beneath the chaos. The death of the false self. Every human being constructs an identity, a patchwork of achievements, roles, and beliefs that whisper, "This is who I am." We call it the ego, but it is more than that. It is a simulation of self, a character we've spent decades refining. And yet, at some point, life delivers a blow so precise that the entire structure cracks. A betrayal, a loss, a sudden, suffocating awareness that nothing you've built can save you. This is the first function of the dark night. To kill what was never real. Jung called this the shadow, the repressed, denied, and fragmented aspects of the self that the ego refuses to acknowledge. But the dark night goes deeper. It doesn't just reveal the shadow. It annihilates the illusion that you were ever whole to begin with. It is the universe's way of asking, who are you when everything you cling to is gone? Modern spirituality often frames awakening as a linear ascent, higher vibrations, expanded consciousness, a steady march toward enlightenment. But the dark night laughs at such tidy narratives. It does not care how many hours you've meditated, how many retreats you've attended, or how many books you've read. In fact, it often strikes hardest at those who believe they are ahead on the path. Why? Because true transformation is not accumulation, it is subtraction. The mystic knows this. The alchemist knows this. The dark night is not a failure of spiritual practice. It is the culmination of it. It is the moment when all your concepts of God, enlightenment, and healing are revealed as mental constructs, leaving you in the terrifying, liberating void of pure not knowing. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote that man can endure any how if he has a why. But what happens when the why dissolves? When the beliefs that once sustained you about love, purpose, even divinity, crumble like ash in your hands. This is the second function of the dark night. To burn away false meaning. It is not depression, though it may wear its face. It is not despair, though it may borrow its voice. It is something far more ancient, a spiritual detoxification. Just as the body purges poison through fever, the soul purges illusion through existential crisis. You are not losing your mind. You are losing your myths. Here is the secret. The dark night is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens for you. Think of a caterpillar in its chrysalis. From the outside, it appears as decay, but inside, an alchemy is taking place. The caterpillar does not simply grow wings. It is liquefied, its very cells broken down into primordial soup so that something new can emerge. To resist this process is to resist becoming. The dark night operates the same way. It is not a punishment, but a reconfiguration. It dismantles you because the person you are could never contain what you are becoming. This is the crossroads. Most people fight the dark night. They numb it, deny it, or frantically seek a way out, only to find themselves trapped in cycles of the same pain. But the ones who surrender, who let the darkness strip them bare, discover something astonishing. The dark night was never the enemy. It was the initiation. There are truths too vast for logic to contain. They slip through the cracks of language, revealing themselves only in symbols, the silent language of dreams, myths, and the unconscious. To truly grasp the dark night of the soul, we must step beyond psychology and into the realm of story, where the oldest patterns of human transformation are encoded. The descent of Inanna, a map of the underworld. Long before psychology named the dark night, the Sumerians told of Inanna, the queen of heaven, who set aside her crown and jewels to descend into the underworld. At each of its 7 gates, she was stripped, first her scepter, then her robes, then her very flesh, until she stood naked and broken before her sister, Ereshkigal, the goddess of death. This is no mere myth. It is a blueprint. Inanna's descent mirrors the dark night with terrifying precision. The gates are the layers of identity you must surrender. The stripping away is not punishment, it is necessity. You cannot enter the underworld, the unconscious, as you are. You must become nothing. Only then can you return, reborn. Modern seekers misunderstand this. They want the crown without the crucifixion, the light without the dissolution. But Ereshkigal does not negotiate. The dark night, like the underworld, demands everything. Odin and the world tree, the hanged man's revelation. Norse mythology offers another key. Odin, the Allfather, hung himself from Yggdrasil, the world tree, for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear. At the brink of death, the runes, the hidden codes of reality, revealed themselves to him. This is the paradox of the dark night. You must be suspended between worlds to see the truth. The ego fears this suspension. It screams for resolution, for solid ground. But the dark night is the spear. It pins you in the liminal space, no longer who you were, not yet who you will be. And in that unbearable tension, revelation strikes like lightning. The alchemist's nigredo, putrefaction before gold. Medieval alchemists spoke of nigredo, the blackening the stage where all matter rots, dissolves, and decays. To the uninitiated, it appeared as failure. But the masters knew. This is where the work begins. The dark night is your nigredo. Society tells you to rush through pain, to heal as quickly as possible. But alchemy teaches that gold cannot emerge without first reducing the self to primordial sludge. Your depression, your existential void, your feeling of being spiritually gutted. This is not the absence of transformation. It is transformation itself, the Fisher King's wound, a kingdom in ruins. Arthurian legend speaks of the Fisher King, ruler of a wasteland, whose unhealed wound keeps his land barren. He cannot be healed by force, only when the right question is asked. Whom does the Grail serve? The dark night, too, is a question disguised as suffering. You may beg the universe, why is this happening? But the real question is, what part of me must die for life to return? The Fisher King's kingdom mirrors your inner world barren until the wound is confronted not as a flaw, but as a sacred threshold. The cosmic joke. Enlightenments. Bait and switch. Here lies the cruelest and most liberating truth. The dark night is enlightenment in drag. You thought awakening would feel like expansion, like light, like victory. Instead, it feels like death. Because it is death, the death of the one who sought awakening. The ego imagines enlightenment as its ultimate achievement, never realizing that it cannot survive the encounter. This is the joke. This is why so many turn back at the threshold. They mistake the dark night for a failure of their journey, when in truth, it is the only journey there is. The dark night of the soul is not some abstract spiritual concept. It bleeds into your daily life. It's in the mornings you wake up and no longer recognize yourself, in the relationships that suddenly feel hollow, in the career that once drove you, but now seems meaningless. You can't meditate your way out of it. You can't bypass it with positive thinking. So how do you live through it? How do you navigate this freefall without losing yourself entirely, or worse, mistaking the disintegration for destruction? The first rule: stop resisting the unraveling. The immediate instinct is to fix it, to therapize, medicate, or spiritually bypass the discomfort. But the dark night does not respond to force. It responds only to surrender. This doesn't mean passive suffering. It means ceasing the war against your own dissolution. When the existential dread rises, don't numb it. Sit with it. When the old identities crumble, don't scramble to rebuild them. Let them fall. When the questions come with no answers, don't rush to fill the silence. Listen. The dark night is like quicksand. The more you struggle, the faster it consumes you. But if you relax into the sink, something paradoxical happens. You find an unseen buoyancy. The art of sacred navigation. 3 anchors in the storm. You cannot control the dark night, but you can orient yourself within it. These are not solutions, but lifelines, ways to keep from drowning, while the transformation does its work. 1. The anchor of the body. When the mind is in free fall, the body remains. The breath, the heartbeat, the weight of your hands, these are real in a way thoughts are not. Practice. Ground through sensation. Cold water on the skin. The press of feet against the earth. The slow counting of breaths. The dark night is a spiritual crisis, but it is fought and survived in the flesh. 2. The anchor of ritual is not about superstition. It's about structure and chaos. When meaning evaporates, ritual creates a container for the unsettling. Practice. Light a candle each night, not as prayer, but as witness. Write 1 line in a journal, even if it's just, I don't know. Walk the same path daily, letting the repetition become a mantra of motion. The dark night strips away false order. Ritual rebuilds it, slowly, from the bones up. 3. The anchor of the unknown. The mind craves certainty, but the dark night is a tutor in not knowing. Practice. When the panic of uncertainty arises, say aloud, I am where I need to be. Not as affirmation, but as surrender. The ego hates this. The soul thrives on it. The dark night's most dangerous lie, and how to disarm it. The voice will whisper, this is forever. You are broken. Nothing matters. This is the lie. Not because the pain isn't real, but because the dark night is cyclical, not permanent. It comes in waves, not floods. When the void feels infinite, remind yourself this is a process, not a prison. When exhaustion wins, sleep, not as escape, as rebirth. You crave the old self. Ask, do I miss who I was, or just the illusion of safety? The alchemy of daily life, where the dark night works its magic. The grandest transformations happen in the smallest moments. The morning you drink your coffee and realize you no longer recognize your own life. The conversation where you hear yourself say something the old you would never have admitted. The night you stare at the ceiling and, for the first time, don't rush to fill the emptiness with noise. These are the moments the dark night is working. Not in the epiphanies, but in the infinitesimal shifts, the way a forest grows in silence, unseen until one day the entire landscape has changed. The forbidden truth about waiting it out, conventional wisdom says, this too shall pass. But the dark night does not pass, it transforms you. You will not return to who you were. The goal is not to endure, but to allow. There comes a moment in every descent when the darkness no longer feels like an enemy. The fear softens. The resistance quiets. Something in you, something older than your name, your history, your pain, begins to recognize this unraveling knot. As destruction, but as homecoming. This is the secret the dark night has been keeping from you. You were never lost. You were being remade, the initiation you didn't choose, but needed. We spend our lives building fortresses of identity, careers, roles, beliefs to keep the vastness of our own souls at bay. Then, without warning, the dark night arrives like a storm, tearing down the walls, flooding the corridors, leaving us exposed to the raw sky. We call this suffering. The ancients called it grace. Carl Jung once wrote, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. But the dark night reveals a deeper truth. You are not even what you choose. You are what remains when all choices are stripped away. The call to the depths. This is not a conclusion, because the dark night does not end, it initiates. It is not a chapter you close, but a lens through which you will now see everything. So I ask you, will you keep fighting the dissolution, or will you let it hollow you into something capable of holding light? Will you mourn the self you were, or will you kneel in the ashes and greet the stranger you are becoming? Will you demand answers, or will you finally hear the question the dark night has been whispering all along? Who are you when no one is watching, not even yourself? The only way out is in. There is a love that thrives in the dark. Not the love of comfort, but the love that knows your name in the silence. It has been waiting for you. All you have to do is stop running, turn, face it, and fall.